Dawn peeled the frost off a corrugated door. Two sisters pressed flat to it, breath-fogging metal, whispering the same line like prayer. "We can't run any more. Please, just one night." A V-twin growled awake inside. A skull and wings patch stepped into the light and froze. "Before we start the story, tell us, where in the world are you watching this from? And if you enjoy our stories, please consider subscribing to our channel. It'll help us reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers and keep sharing more inspiring content with you." Coldwater Bend still slept. Log trucks lined the lot, River wearing a skin of steam. When Rowan and Ivy slipped behind the iron chapel, the hellsangels clubhouse disguised as a dead machine shop. Rowan's backpack was ripped. Ivy's sneakers split at the toes. Highway 26 yawned behind them, empty and dangerous. Rowan tapped the steel door. 3 soft knocks that sounded like hollow bones. "Just one night," Ivy whispered. "Inside, someone killed the music." Bolts clacked. The door rattled up a foot, then all the way. A tall man stepped out, grey in his beard, eyes the color of rain on glass. The back of his cut read, "Captain," the front patch, "Chaplain." "You're lost," he said, voice gravel with something gentler hiding under it. Rowan steadied her sister. "We're hiding. From family." His gaze fell to the bruises on Ivy's wrist, the scar on Rowan's lip, the way both flinched at his shadow. He straightened. "Names. Rowan, Ivy." He nodded once. "Mason Rourke. Come inside." The clubhouse smelled of oil, coffee, and old wood. Neon beer signs buzzed like tired bees above the bar. A half-dozen men looked up when Mason walked in with the girls. Tattooed forearms frozen mid-paw. Pool cue stopped mid-swing. "These two were outside," Mason said. "They ain't trouble." A younger biker with a shaved head, Diesel, snorted. "Everybody's trouble when they're shaking that hard." Rowan stepped forward, jaw set. "We'll go if you want." "We just needed somewhere warm." Mason raised a hand. "You'll stay." His voice didn't invite argument. He pulled 2 blankets from the back couch, set them by the fire pit that burned slow in the center of the room. "Sit," he said. Ivy sank down, eyes darting to the club patches, the skull logos, the knives resting easy on belts. Mason caught the fear in her face. He leaned down, lowering his voice. "You're safe here. Nobody lays a hand on you." For the first time all night, Rowan let out a breath that didn't sound like running. When dawn burned off the fog outside, the rumble of engines woke the compound. Brothers headed out in twos, dust rising like memory. Rowan watched from the corner, clutching a mug Mason had handed her. Coffee bitter but honest. He sat across the room, rebuilding a carburetor, movements precise, clean. "You got someone after you?" he asked. Rowan nodded slowly. "My husband's family. They think I stole his insurance. He drank himself into a grave, and they still want blood." Mason's jaw flexed. "And the kid?" "My sister," she said. "They said they'd take her too, 'cause she owed them for food and roof." Diesel, passing by, muttered, "Real classy people." Mason looked up, something old and dark behind his calm. "You run from the law or from evil?" "Both," Rowan said. He nodded once, wiping his hands. "Then you ran the right way." Outside, thunder echoed far off, not weather but bikes coming back fast. Diesel peeked through the blinds. "Mace," he said. "We got company. Sheriff's truck." The sheriff stepped out like a man allergic to decency, belly over his belt, hat pulled low, badge dulled from dust and compromise. Behind him a silver SUV idled, windows blacked out. "Mornin', Rourke," he said. "Heard you're harboring a couple strays." Mason didn't rise from his seat. "You heard wrong." The sheriff's eyes drifted past him to the sisters. "That one there, Rowan Hayes. Her in-laws filed a complaint. Theft, trespass, child endangerment." Ivy flinched. "I'm not a child," she whispered. Mason stood slow enough to make the air itself hesitate. "You got a warrant?" Just concern, the sheriff said with a smirk. Diesel leaned in the doorway, arms crossed. Funny. Concern never comes without handcuffs in this town. The sheriff spat in the dirt. Keep your patch out of family matters, Rourke. You don't want your club dragged through court again. Mason's voice dropped low. You drag my name, you'll need more than paper. The sheriff's smile faded. He backed up, muttering, You'll regret this. As his truck rolled off, Mason exhaled. Lock the gate. That night, the clubhouse dimmed to quiet hums and clinking bottles. The sisters sat by the old jukebox, the hum of a country song whispering through static. Ivy drew patterns in the dust with her finger. Why are you helping us? Mason looked up from cleaning his gun. Not a threat, just habit. Because once, someone helped me. And I didn't deserve it either. Rowan studied him in the low light. You were in a gang war, right? He gave a half-smile. Still am. Difference is, these days, it's not over territory. It's over what kind of man I get to be. Diesel passed by with a beer. He used to be road captain. Buried 3 brothers in one summer. Swore off blood unless it was worth it. Rowan's throat tightened. And we're worth it? Mason looked at her then, steady, unflinching. You're breathing, ain't you? That's enough. Outside, the night wind carried faint shouting from down the highway. Mason's eyes darkened. Guess mercy don't stay secret long. The pounding started just after midnight. Steel against steel. Voices outside yelling through the rain. Diesel was first to the door, pistol drawn. 2 trucks, no plates. 4 men minimum. Mason moved slow, deliberate, sliding on his leather cut. They found him. Rowan froze at the sound. It's them, she whispered. My husband's brothers. Mason turned, eyes sharp. They touch this gate, they touch us. Outside, headlights cut through the storm. The first truck stopped at the chain fence, engines growling like hungry beasts. A voice yelled, You got something that belongs to us. Mason stepped into the rain, no weapon in hand, only his presence, calm, carved in defiance. She's a widow, not property. You best remember that. Laughter echoed from the truck. You think that patch makes you God? No, Mason said, but it'll make me the devil you wish you hadn't met. The thunder swallowed his words, but the meaning hung in the air like a drawn blade. Inside, Rowan pulled Ivy into the back hallway, hands shaking. Stay quiet, no matter what you hear. Diesel tossed Mason a rifle, the wood worn smooth by years of use. You sure you want to start this? Mason chambered around. They started it the moment they called Payne family business. The headlights moved closer, tires crunching gravel. Then a window shattered, bottle, flame, glass. The fire licked the doorway. Molotov! Diesel shouted. Mason doused it with a blanket, smoke clawing up the walls. Get the girls out the back! But Rowan had already stepped forward, voice shaking but strong. They won't stop. Not until I'm dead. Mason turned, eyes hard. Then we make sure you live. He swung the gate open, stepping into the rain-soaked yard. The men outside hesitated, 6 of them now, soaked and armed. The lightning flashed, catching Mason's face, a ghost of every battle he'd survived. You boys ever try bleeding for the wrong reason? He said softly. Tonight's your lesson. The first swing came fast, metal pipe glinting under lightning. Mason blocked with his forearm, grabbed the man's jacket and slammed him into mud. Diesel's shotgun barked once, scattering the rest. It wasn't a brawl, it was judgment. By the time the rain eased, 2 trucks were abandoned in the yard, engines hissing like dying animals. The survivors limped toward the highway, dragging their pride behind them. Mason's knuckles bled. He wiped them on his jeans, breathing hard. Inside, Rowan knelt beside Ivy, who clung to her. It's over, Rowan whispered. But Mason's expression said otherwise. He stepped inside, grabbed a towel and tossed it onto the counter. They'll be back, he said. Not for you, for revenge. Rowan's voice cracked. Why didn't you just let them take us? Mason looked at her, rain dripping off his jaw. Because I've buried enough good people who thought running would save 'em. He lit a cigarette with shaking hands, the ember flaring against his eyes like a confession he'd carried too long. Morning broke grey and heavy, the kind of sky that hides angels or regrets. The clubhouse was quiet, except for the hiss of coffee brewing. Mason sat by the window, watching tire tracks vanish down the dirt road. Diesel stood beside him, arms folded. "You know they'll come with badges next time." Mason nodded. "Then we stay loud. We got enough eyes in this county to make noise." Rowan stepped out of the hallway, hair damp, face pale but resolved. "We'll leave today. I won't drag you into this." Mason's voice was low, almost kind. "You already did. And that's okay." She blinked, confused. "Why would you—" He interrupted. "You think angels just ride for chaos? We ride for the lost ones. The ones no one believes." Diesel smirked. "Hell, sometimes we are them." Outside, an engine revved, a single bike left idling by the fence. Mason stood. "Come on," he said to Rowan. "You're riding with me. Time to end this right." The ride was silent, but electric. The road slick, the world wide open. Rowan clutched Mason's jacket, eyes closed against the wind. The rain had stopped, but the weight of what came next pressed heavier than weather. They pulled into Hollow Creek, a run-down town where her in-laws ran their mechanic business. The place stank of rust, oil, and cheap pride. Mason parked the Harley dead center of the yard. Every mechanic stopped working. Silas Hayes, thick neck, mean eyes, stepped out, wiping grease from his hands. "Well, well, the savior shows up." Rowan slid off the bike, trembling but tall. "You don't get to own me anymore, Silas," he laughed. "You think these bikers scare me?" Mason stepped forward, voice like steel, dragged slow. "Not here to scare you. Here to finish what you started." He tossed something on the ground, legal papers, stamped. "Signed custody transfer. Everything you stole is hers again. You come near her, I come bury you." Silas's grin faltered. For the first time, he saw what mercy looked like when it wore leather and scars. Silas's face twisted, jaw clenching around words too mean to say in daylight. His men shifted behind him, uncertain. The legal seal on that paper gleamed under the morning sun like a warning. Rowan stared at Mason, disbelief trembling in her breath. You filed this?" He nodded once. "Had a friend in county records. You deserved more than hiding," Silas spat. "You think paperwork makes you righteous?" Mason stepped close, his presence like gravity. "No, doing the right thing does. You wouldn't recognize it." The air between them pulsed tight with violence. Then Diesel's voice cut from behind, calm, cool. "Boss, we got eyes on the sheriff's car." Mason didn't flinch. "Good. Let him see what protection looks like." He turned to Rowan, his tone soft but final. "You don't owe them another second of your life." For the first time in years, she straightened her shoulders, not in defense, but in freedom. The woman who once begged for one night now stood tall in full daylight. By noon, rumors had already bled across Hollow Creek. Folks whispered about the hellsangels guarding a widow, about the sheriff looking away for once, about Silas Hayes being humiliated in his own yard. At the gas station, a farmer nodded to Mason as he fueled up. "He heard you gave the devil back his dues." Mason smirked faintly. "Nah, just returned a debt that was never mine." Back at the clubhouse, Ivy helped Diesel patch a tire, her laughter ringing clear and innocent. Rowan watched from the steps, something easing inside her chest she hadn't felt since childhood. Safety. Mason approached quietly, handing her a cold soda. "First peaceful day you've had in a while." She smiled, small but real. "Feels strange." He looked at her for a long moment. "You'll get used to peace. It's louder than war if you listen." Rowan studied him then, not as her rescuer, but as a man who carried ghosts and still chose mercy over rage. And that kind of strength changed everything. That night, the compound lit with warm light, engines cooling, laughter rising like smoke. For the first time, Rowan and Ivy sat among them at the long wooden table. Diesel told stories about bar fights that ended in hugs, while Mason watched quietly, his beer untouched. Ivy leaned toward him. "You don't smile much, do you?" He chuckled low. "Got out of practice." Rowan's eyes softened. "You ever had a family?" He hesitated, then nodded toward the framed photo above the bar, a boy in military fatigues grinning wide. "My brother Kane, he patched in before me. Didn't come back from a ride gone wrong." Silence swept through the room like a wind shift. Rowan whispered, "I'm sorry." Mason nodded. "He used to say we ain't born angels. We earn it by keeping the broken ones flying." Ivy smiled through her tears. "Then I guess you earned your wings twice." The table quieted, the moment heavy and sacred. Outside, rain began again, gentle this time, like forgiveness tapping on the roof. The next morning, Mason found Rowan standing at the gate, staring at the mountains that held both her past and her freedom. She wore one of Ivy's old denim jackets, sleeves rolled, hair braided against the wind. "You thinking of leaving?" he asked. She shook her head slowly. "I'm thinking of living. First time I can do that without looking over my shoulder." He smiled faintly. "Then stay till you remember what peace feels like." She turned to him, eyes shining. "And what about you? You ever gonna stop saving strays?" He looked toward the open highway. "Maybe one day. But not today." She stepped closer. "If you ever forget why you fight, look at me." For a heartbeat. He said nothing, just stared at her with that quiet intensity that burned hotter than confession. "Finally," he whispered, "you just gave me another reason." The wind kicked up dust around their boots. Neither moved. Both knew something bigger than rescue had begun. Weeks passed, and Coldwater Bend began to whisper a different legend. The angels weren't the villains anymore. They were the men who'd shielded two sisters when the law wouldn't. Rowan started cooking in the clubhouse kitchen, feeding the crew before long rides. Ivy painted over the bullet holes in the outer wall, calling it art therapy. Diesel joked she should sign it Saint Ivy of Broken Things. Every evening, Mason sat on the porch with coffee, watching the girls laugh. The sunset melting gold across the bikes. Peace didn't erase the past, but it made surviving worth it. One night, as the engines cooled and the crickets hummed, Rowan joined him with 2 mugs. "You never asked what comes next," she said softly. He glanced at her. "Don't have to." "You're already home," she smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "Then maybe it's time you stop guarding the world and start living in it." He looked at her, eyes tired but alive. "Yeah," he murmured. "Maybe it is." It was near dusk when Diesel came running from the gate, helmet in hand. "Mace, someone's at the old bridge. Says he knows you." Mason rose slowly, unease cutting through the calm. "Describe him." "Tall, black jacket, no cut. Got a limp like an old injury." Mason's eyes narrowed. "That's Riker." The name hit Diesel hard. "From the—" "Yeah," Mason said. "The job that went bad." He rode alone to the bridge. The air hung heavy with diesel fumes and memory. Riker waited by a rusted pickup, cigarette glowing like a warning. "Mace," he said. "Didn't think you'd come." "Didn't think I'd have to," Mason replied. Riker flicked the cigarette into the mud. "Word is, you're playing preacher to runaways." "That ain't you." Mason's jaw tightened. "Maybe it's the only part that ever was." Riker smiled thinly. "You can't hide from blood, brother. It finds you." Mason's hand hovered near his belt, but not for a gun. "Not if you finally let it stop." They stood in silence, rain dripping from the bridge rails. Beneath them the river swelled with storm water, dragging branches and secrets downstream. Riker's voice cracked. "You think mercy wipes it clean?" What we did in Helena, in Reno, in that motel parking lot, none of it dies just 'cause you switched sermons." Mason's eyes burned. "You think I don't see 'em every night? I built a church for ghosts, Riker. Every brother we lost, every mistake we made. I keep their names in my head so I don't repeat them." Riker's smirk faded. "Then why help her? Some woman you don't know?" "Because I still know what it feels like to beg for one night of peace and have nobody answer." Riker looked down at the mud, the rain cutting paths through his stubble. "Maybe you're the better man now." Mason shook his head. "No, just the one who's done running." They clasped hands once, old war, old wounds, and parted without another word. Some goodbyes don't need sound. When Mason returned to the clubhouse, the air felt cleaner, lighter somehow. Diesel was fixing a carburetor, Ivy humming along to the radio. Rowan looked up from a stack of dishes, relief softening her face. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," he said quietly. "Closed a door I should have locked years ago." Rowan wiped her hands on a towel. "Then maybe it's time to open one." That night the crew sat around the fire pit. Mason pulled out a small tin box from his jacket. Inside, a folded patch, his old road captain insignia, faded but proud. He looked at Diesel. "Take it." Diesel froze. "You serious?" "You've earned it." "I'm done leading rides. Time to lead something else." Rowan smiled faintly. "Like what?" Mason looked around the fire. The faces he'd bled beside, the sisters he'd protected, the ghosts that finally felt quiet. "Like peace," he said. "Maybe that's the hardest road there is." No one laughed. They just nodded. Even angels know when it's time to land. Spring came early to Coldwater Bend. Wildflowers crawled through cracks in the asphalt. Birds nested in the hollow pipes above the shop. The world felt like it was trying again. Rowan had turned the old storage shed into a kitchen, feeding bikers, drifters, anyone who came hungry. Ivy painted a mural on the wall, a pair of wings stretched wide. Wrapping around the words, "Mercy rides here," Mason watched them from the porch, his leather jacket folded neatly beside him, replaced by a denim one with grease stains and quiet pride. Diesel revved his bike once and grinned. "You sure you don't want to roll with us, old man?" Mason smirked. "Nah, someone's got to keep the lights on." As the bikes roared down the road, he felt no pull of the past, only the hum of something steady, earned. Rowan stepped outside, wiping flour from her hands. "They'll be back by dark," Mason nodded, eyes on the horizon. "They always come home." That night, after everyone had eaten and laughter faded to whispers, Mason found Rowan sitting by the fire, hair loose, eyes reflecting flame. "You ever think about that night?" she asked softly. "The first one," he nodded. "Every time it rains," she smiled sadly. "We asked for one night. You gave us a life." They sat in silence, the kind that holds rather than hides. The flames swayed low, crackling like an old heartbeat refusing to stop. Rowan leaned her head on his shoulder. "What happens now?" Mason glanced toward the row of parked bikes, the mural, the stars beginning to crawl across the sky. "Now," he said quietly, "we keep the doors open. For the next ones who knock." The wind shifted, carrying the faint echo of engines down the distant road. Soft, steady, like a prayer with chrome and wings. And for once, the angels didn't sound like thunder. They sounded like home. In a world where most ride to escape, these angels rode to protect. If this story reminded you that mercy is still louder than hate, hit that subscribe, like, and ring the bell for more true hearts. Roaring engines and roads where kindness still has a name.